Welcome everyone. I'm Gianmarco Torchetti, PhD candidate in economics at ETH Zurich, Center for Law and Economics. I'm very happy today to introduce Professor Francesco Parisi. Professor Parisi is Professor of Law at the University of Minnesota and Professor of Economics at the University of Bologna. In his research, he delves into topics like contracts, property law, the evolution of legal norms, studying how legal rules influence individual behavior and societal outcomes. Today, we will explore a topic in innovation we rarely talk about: failure. In his research, titled Rewarding Failure, Professor Parisi argues that unsuccessful research efforts are not to be wasted. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Before we delve into the discussion, why don't you give us a brief summary of your research and the motivation behind that?
Yes, so the idea of the research is titled Rewarding Failure. And the idea is that existing systems, existing intellectual property, intellectual legal systems, focus on the success of research. And the reward is linked to the success of research. And failure is simply the undesirable side effect of research. Whenever things don't work, this is part of the cost of research. But there is no focus on the potential value of failure for future research and for other firms' research. And the tools available in intellectual property law are not attentive to that dimension. So the purpose of the study is to draw attention on the value of failure and the problems that arise by not rewarding unsuccessful research with respect to the timing of research and the investment in research.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting. And let me ask you, you say that unsuccessful research has a value. And I was wondering how the value of failure differ from the better known concept of knowledge spillover in successful innovation.
Yes. So when we talk about intellectual spillovers or innovation spillovers, we always focus on the side effect or the externalities created by positive knowledge. And let's define positive knowledge. Knowledge, we discovered that a certain vitamin helps cure a given illness. And then from that information, there are side research that may spin off from there. But we don't realize that also establishing that a certain vitamin doesn't help cure a given illness is valuable knowledge. And the spread of this negative information could be also valuable for society. So to what extent are existing legal rules, existing institutions, market institutions, going to incentivize the spread of this negative information? We don't want firms to duplicate research because of the lack of knowledge. We have established that vitamin Z doesn't help cure illness H. Okay? But if we don't tell other companies, other firms about our failure, it may happen that other entities in the industry will carry out exactly the same research, duplicate costs, and reach the same dead end at the end of the research. How can we incentivize the spread of this negative knowledge? Spread of positive knowledge happens through the marketplace. We patent something, we license the patent, we sell the patent, and the knowledge spreads in this way. But if there is no mechanism for internalizing the value of the negative information, there will be less incentive to spread the negative knowledge. Firms don't have much incentive to say we failed. It's not good for their reputation. It's not good for their financial returns. So why would we disclose that information? So how can we, so once we identify this problem, the question becomes how can we help solve this problem in order to align what we refer to as private incentives to social incentives? How can we make firms behave the way societies would like them to behave, which is to spread the negative knowledge through the industry?
And let me follow up on that. How a system that you propose where you reward failures would affect firms' behavior in a competitive environment? I'm thinking about pharmaceuticals, tech industry. How would such a system would affect firms' behavior?
Firms would be affected in two fundamental dimensions: the timing of research and the intensity, that is the investment in research. So let me give you a simple example. Imagine that there are three possible solutions to a given problem, and the value of the solution is $1 billion. And the investment needed to pursue each one of the three venues, let's say, is $400,000. Okay, if I am a single firm, say a startup firm, that can invest only in one of the three venues, I will never want to be the first one to invest, because my expected return is 1/3 of the $1 billion, and my research investment would be $400,000. So if I enter first, I would face a loss, an expected loss. And of course, if there is no first entrant, there will be no second entrant and third entrant. So there will be a holdout. Okay? There will be no entry, there will be no creation of research in that field. So the only possibility there would be if you have a single firm able to monopolize and undertake all three venues of research. Okay? But that, from an antitrust point of view, is not the desirable solution. We don't want to promote and reward monopolies, because then there are side effects of that. So can we come up with alternative solutions so that even a firm that can only undertake one venue of research will not be waiting out, refusing to be the first in line? And this will also be seen, this problem is also seen in the intensity of research. Okay? Even if you are entering, you will not be investing at the optimal level, because your research creates a positive value that you internalize if you succeed. That's the patent value. But also creates a negative, a positive externality through your negative knowledge that the firm does not internalize. And therefore, anytime there is a positive externality, the activity will be carried out at a suboptimal level. So how can we correct for that to increase the level of investment so that firms will be happy to carry out research, hopefully, obviously hoping to get the positive result, but also willing to accept the negative result, because that will provide some reward for society and for themselves.
Thank you. This is very interesting. I have one last question before we go to the conclusion. You talk about in your paper different institutions. You talk about trade secrets. You talk about research subsidies. You talk about negative patents. Among these institutions you talk about, which one is, in your opinion, the most desirable, and why?
Well, from a theoretical point of view, if we could calibrate subsidies, that would be an instrument able to correct both the optimal timing and the optimal intensity of research. The problem with subsidies is very hard for a third party, be the government or an industrial agency, to evaluate and calibrate the value of the negative information and to provide a subsidy related to that. So from a theoretical point of view, if you do theoretical economics, oh yes, the subsidy is the best, but it's not the logistically most viable. The current system only provides one remedy, which is the trade secret. You fail, you can keep the secret in your drawer, and the secret is protected. Okay? Nobody has access to the information about your failure. Where you failed, what you did, it's your information, and you have a protection for that. But when you analyze the effects of the trade secrets, it's actually the opposite of what we would want. Okay? It doesn't give an advantage to the second mover because the second mover has no information about your failures. But from a social point of view, makes the second mover likely to make the same mistakes that the first mover made. So there is a duplication of failures. And also it doesn't allow the spread of the negative information. Okay? The secret stays in the drawer. We would like that secret to become known to everybody so everybody can build on your failures. But at the same time, we want you to be rewarded for providing that negative information because that negative information is valuable for society and you should be able to internalize that positive externality. So on paper, the subsidy would be most desirable. In reality, at the current moment, trade secrets, unless we make them sellable, and I will tell you in the next question, if you ask me that question, why they are not very viable. The trade secrets are hard to sell when they contain negative information.
Then let me ask
That's
you
the question.
the question.
The question is, why is it hard to sell a secret? Well, because you see, if I sell a patent, you want to see what the patent is about. And I can show you what the patent is about. And if you buy, it's yours. If you don't want to buy, it remains mine. And if you use the information I gave you without buying it, I can detect that. Okay, you built something I designed without obtaining the patent. With a negative information, a trade secret, okay, I show you where I failed. And you want to see what is inside that trade secret box before buying it, of course. As soon as I open the box, the secret is gone. And you can take advantage of that information, and I cannot detect any use of that because your use of the negative information materializes in a non-action, in inaction. So I can say, oh, you have not done that research because I gave you that information. You could answer, no, I've not done that research because I would never have done that research, was not part of our agenda, research agenda. And so I could not activate the remedies for violation of a trade secret. This is known as Arrow's information paradox. It is hard, if not impossible, to sell negative information. So the practical solution would be to use or to foster, this is as a policy recommendation, mechanisms that facilitate the sale of negative information, given the fact that markets as such doesn't allow for that. Intermediaries, information brokers that know what is inside the information box and can find buyers that would value that information and put the parties in touch with each other without disclosing the actual content of the negative information box. Other policy recommendations. Joint ventures. Okay? Joint ventures are a way to say, okay, we have a lot of information We cannot show you what it is, otherwise information is gone and the secret is lost. But we should partner together and do and team up. Joint ventures are viewed with some skepticism from an antitrust point of view, okay? Because joint ventures is basically laying the foundations for a monopolization. But in this case, whenever there are situations where negative information is likely to be created, they may be viewed with a little bit more open-mindedness, because that might be a solution to the negative information paradox.
Thank you very much, Professor, for sharing your research with us. It was a pleasure to have you here. And for all our viewers, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. And hopefully, we'll see you in the next episode.